Welcome back to the Conservation Podcast here at the Pike County Conservation District. My name is Emily. I'm the Communications Coordinator here at the district. And today I'm talking with Shelby Chorba, who's the Program Manager at Northern Tier Hardwood Association. And we're going to talk about invasive species and how they're affecting the forestry industry. Okay, I'm here with Shelby Chorba from the Northern Tier Hardwood Association. Shelby is the program manager there. So thanks for joining me, Shelby.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Could you talk a little bit about what the Northern Tier Hardwood Association is?
Sure. So we are a nonprofit. We serve 9 counties in the northeastern corner of Pennsylvania, from Tioga County to Bradford, Susquehanna, Wayne, Pike, Luzerne, Lackawanna, Wyoming, and Sullivan.
That is a lot.
Yes. So we are there's 3 hardwood utilization groups in the state, and we are one of the 3. So I cover the Northeast, like I said, and then there's one in the Northwest and one in kind of in the central part of the state. So we all do very similar things with education and promotion of the wood products industry and sustainable forestry. We are technically through the Department of Agriculture, so we do get some money through the budget, so that's how we're able to really run and do as many education events as we do. But that's kind of the gist of it.
That's awesome. Very cool. So what are some of the ways that you work to promote sustainability in the forestry and hardwood industries?
So, like I said, we do a lot of education to school students. During school, usually like conservation days, we'll help with Envirothon, like we helped with you guys a little bit, on sustainable forestry and active management of the forests. We do public events and outreach to the community. So like we'll have booths at fairs, we did like a contractors workshop, those type things, like just any resource events. We'll be there to let the people know that we're kind of here to help with, whatever you might need with forestry. You just have questions, but we can get you in touch with forestry companies, loggers, sawmills. And like I said earlier, with the other 2 groups in the state, we partner with them a lot and do grant projects on education materials for the public on sustainable forestry. So it seems like it's a never-ending list, but
that's really cool. And you've got lots of partnerships to work through.
Yeah.
That's great. So today we're going to talk a little bit about invasive species in the forestry industry. So what makes a species invasive, and who decides whether or not it's considered invasive?
Yeah, so a species that is invasive is usually very prolific, and it's either non-desirable, which is kind of a weird word, but usually not native, but it can be native, and it's harmful to the environment in some way. So it's usually like taking over an area,
right? And
it's just causing harm to every other tree that's or any species that's trying to thrive there.
Right.
So in Pennsylvania, I'm not sure how other states do it, but the governor has an invasive species council, and they're the ones that decide on the species that will be invasive to our state.
Okay.
DCNR is part of that, Department of Ag, DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Transportation, Department of Health, PA Fish and Boat Commission, the Game Commission, and then there's other like non-government organizations like conservancies and stuff that they all have their input into that. So
okay, very neat.
Yeah.
So the spotted lanternfly is one of the invasive species that we're seeing a lot around here in Pike County in the summer. So how is that affecting the hardwood industry?
So right now we aren't seeing it being too bad, and Penn State did do a research project, I think last summer, and they released it maybe this spring on different types of smaller hardwood saplings, and thankfully the spotted lanternfly hasn't affected the trees themselves. So, but obviously we still have to be aware of them when we are out in the woods and when they're moving equipment and transportation. So it's still something that we have to be aware about, but thankfully it's not causing substantial harm to those trees in the long run, at least.
Okay, that's good. So the industry hasn't had to take like a lot of precautions or anything for dealing with it or combating it?
No, besides if there's quarantine counties transporting between those counties, obviously they need to monitor, and they should have I think it's called a spotted lanternfly business permit, but they can get those, and then once you have them for the counties, you know what to do, and you can move freely.
Yeah, okay. And that just means you're supposed to check your car and your equipment to make sure
Yep.
there's no eggs or anything,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Very neat. Okay.
Yeah.
So the emerald ash borer is another invasive insect that we have around here, right?
Yes.
So is that having an impact, and how are you dealing with them?
Yes, so I feel like I live in Luzerne County, and it's already come through and basically killed them all.
Yeah.
So I think that is happening basically everywhere in our counties. I think maybe there's a few spots in Wayne County that might still have like bigger ash trees that are living, but if they are, they're probably going to die, sadly.
Oh.
But yes, so it's very sad to see an entire species be affected by this one tiny bug. So at this point, there's nothing we can really do about the bug, just to if you can, or get someone to cut down the trees, because obviously they're becoming hazards since they are dead. Not transporting the firewood will help not move the bug as well.
Sure.
Yeah, the DCNR has been doing research on that as well. There's some smaller, like very small, probably like 4 to 8 inch diameter ashes that are popping up that they think might have the resistance.
Oh,
so
okay.
they're looking at, if anybody has them and you have them on your property, reach out to DCNR, because they want to conduct research on those specific trees and see if maybe they will withstand, because like maybe the bug will move and these little ones can hopefully come back.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. That's like a sliver of good information with that. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay, so in addition to the spotted lanternfly and the emerald ash borer, the spongy moth is also an invasive insect that has been attacking a lot of our trees, and especially our oak trees, right?
Yes, right. They do prefer mainly oak trees. If they're really, really bad in other areas, they will go after maples and the rest of the forest. They'll lay eggs basically anywhere, but they like eating the oak leaves. And yeah, so I feel like there's nothing you can do besides spray them. Like if they're in your area, we don't really know how to combat them like over years besides spraying, and they're probably going to, there's a very good chance they're going to come back. So when you don't spray, I mean, they will kill big oak trees, sadly. Yeah. So I definitely would recommend. I mean, it's hard for small landowners to do it. Obviously, DCNR and Game Commission, they do it on the public lands, because they have large tracts, but it's hard for a small landowner to have somebody come and like aerial spray for like a couple acres, but they are out there. Sure,
yeah. So the people in the forestry industry, do they mostly spray their lands to combat that?
Not that I know of, because a lot of people, I mean, there are some larger landowners, sawmills, I would say, in our region that have bigger forests like that they own, but as far as like landowners and other even members with us, they're just like us and kind of just have like a few acres here and there, nothing too crazy. I have seen where neighbors will get together and then they will have, they all decide, yes, we want to have it sprayed, and then they'll have aerial applicators come in and do it. So you could do it that way as well.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So a lot of the forests also have invasive plant species that might not be directly targeting the trees and eating them like the insects do, but what are the potential impacts that they have on outcompeting or otherwise harming those native trees?
Yeah, so in some ways I feel like invasive plant species have more of an impact to the hardwood trees than some insects do. Obviously, the EAB was very bad to the ash trees. So that nothing really compares to that. But these plant species will take over the forest floor or mid-story, and they'll usually completely kind of take over the sunlight, and these hardwood saplings don't have any chance of growing up underneath. So if we don't have regeneration, we're not going to have another small forest coming up, under our big trees. So to me, I feel like that is kind of worse than the insects.
Yes,
I don't know, but like our hardwood forests depend on the natural regeneration to keep the management and the forests always at it, so we always have them obviously for the future. So
so some of those invasive plant species would be like Japanese barberry and tree of heaven and hay-scented fern, right?
Striped maple is a big one, which is funny. Like you think, oh, it's a maple tree, but it's not. You can break them really easy. They're hardly even wood. Like it's a very green stem, but they'll grow up, or they're the first thing I feel like to pop out in the spring, and they look like a moose foot track kind of. So sometimes people call it moose maple, but they have massive leaves and like a ton of seeds. So like they grow everywhere. Not that it's a huge issue for the industry, but we're all aware of all of the things that are not native and we don't really want growing. There's no wildlife value to these invasive species either, usually. So that's another reason why we don't like them.
Right. Yeah. So usually like if they're invasive species that come from somewhere else, right? Yes. Wildlife won't eat them or know how to deal with them.
Right.
You had said at the beginning that they're almost always non-native, but there are some exceptions, right?
Yeah. And like you had said about the hay-scented fern, that is a native fern, and there is a few other ferns that will just grow like crazy when they get a little bit of sunlight in the forest, and they will it'll just be a fern understory, and it looks really pretty, but the little trees underneath will have no chance of sunlight or trying to get up through those ferns, so they can be a problem as well. And that is another one. I know on public lands mostly they will herbicide spray for the fern, because it's just there's no other way to go through and get rid of it. Like you're not going to go through and pull it by hand or mow it. Mowing's not really a thing for fern. So they will eat, and even I believe if they spray one season, it will kind of give those trees a chance. So you don't have to go too crazy with the spraying, but there's so many things against trees.
I know,
growing.
Yeah, they're facing an uphill battle for sure. Are there any other invasive species that the forestry industry is dealing with besides what we've talked about so far?
Yeah, you had mentioned the stiltgrass. That is definitely an issue. We've seen, and there's another one called mile a minute, and they're both kind of, stiltgrass is more of a grass, obviously. Once it grows in an area, it will take over, and then it'll die and just cover the forest floor. So another way that it stops the trees from growing. The mile a minute is it's a tiny vine, but it grows crazy, hence the name. Yeah. And it's hard to walk. It's hard, and the leaves are smaller, but it'll be such a thick mat. Same thing, like other native, even not even just native trees, all native plants have a hard time growing. So those two, there's buckthorn is a kind of a tree type bush that we don't have it too much here, I think, in the Northeast, but the Northwest is they're combating it, trying to spray it, cut it and spray it. You can hack and squirt things that are kind of trees or bigger bushes, so you can cut the bark and squirt the herbicide in it, so then it's not really a spray to kill those types of things. So everybody's trying to do things and see what actually works,
right?
because there is invasive species everywhere.
Yeah, definitely. I know with the Milo minute weed, I've seen it a lot on roadways, right? And it grows like over top of trees and other plants, so then it kind of like suffocates them.
Yes, it will.
Yeah. So there's lots of invasive species that the forestry industry is dealing with. So how are professionals trying to combat this? What are some strategies that they're using to decrease the damage from invasive species?
I know I keep saying about the herbicide spraying. It probably is the most common way to increase the species. And they are specific to the species or species very similar. Like they won't affect hardwood trees or broadleaf trees. Like they so thankfully they won't affect like the non-targeted species that they're trying to spray. So in most cases it's very safe and will get you the outcome that you want. Besides that, I mean, the people, I have heard of mowing things. They have like big brush hogs to mow down like if you have a huge tract of like autumn olive, so that is another invasive species, or multiflora rose. But I think the mowing could be expensive, so I know they do it on public lands, because we have the funds to do that. But if you're a small landowner, I'm not sure, depending on your budget, if you can realistically do that. But mowing is another option. But besides those two, those are the main ones I think that we use.
Right. Yeah, and you had mentioned the hacking, and then also sometimes they inject stuff into the tree, right?
Yep.
So that's a way to kind of prevent that from maybe washing away with stormwater or getting transported other places.
Yeah,
so.
That's correct.
Awesome. So we had mentioned before with the spotted lanternfly how forestry professionals often have to get some kind of permit for their vehicle to make sure that they're watching to make sure that there's no eggs on it.
Yeah.
So what are some other ways that members prevent invasive species from hitchhiking?
So that monitoring, even if it's not the spotted lanternfly, monitoring all of their equipment before they move from a site is a big one, because a lot of times they'll get plant species, in the tires or tracks, and so pulling them off, or if they probably don't have a hose in the woods, but you could wash things off. So if you're in your own home or on your own property, and you get back to your house or whatever, you can spray or pull off those plant species. But as for bugs, it's basically just monitoring and then killing them on the equipment, so that you're not moving them to your next location.
Right. Yeah, and definitely something to reiterate. You had mentioned before about making sure that you don't move firewood from place to place, right? Yes. Yeah, so if you're camping somewhere outside of your community, bugs and invasive species, plant seeds can hitchhike on those logs too. So making sure that you're getting your firewood from where you're using it.
For sure. Yeah.
So what are some things that our communities in general, maybe just outside of the forestry professionals, can do to help stop the spread of invasive species?
So I would just say knowing what invasive plants you might have on your property. And I know that's hard because, if you're not interested, or if you don't go to school for that, or if you're not out in the woods, you probably won't know what's on your property. So DCNR is a great resource, and the Invasive Species Council, they have a list of all the invasive species, and all the ones we've talked about today are the most common, I would say. So just Google a picture and you can kind of see what you have. If you think it's really bad, you could have a forester come out and kind of help you decide what to do with your property. We talked about the spotted lanternfly. If you are driving through those quarantine counties, make sure you're kind of aware. I feel like most of Pennsylvania is quarantined. There's a few in the north that aren't already, and I think everybody should just be aware of it anyways while you're driving. Just look over your car quick before you leave and make sure they're not riding on with you, because it's a big concern. the spotted lanternfly for the grape industry, I guess, for so in like the northwest part of our state, and then the Finger Lakes in New York.
Yeah.
They're not sure. It's not there yet too bad.
Okay.
So they don't know how it might affect them. So
Right.
we don't want to transport them that way.
Yeah, we want to keep it out of there as long as
Yeah.
possible,
Yeah,
for
if
sure.
we can.
So you had said that you do lots of educational programs at schools and public programs and fairs. So what are some things that are up and coming or ways for the public to get involved with Northern Tier Hardwood Association?
Yeah, so this summer, we kind of take a little break. Mostly our events are in the spring and the fall. But this fall we are going to have we're calling it sustainable timber harvesting, but it's going to be a 4-day event at the Bear Creek Camp, which is outside of Wilkes-Barre, Luzerne County, not far from like Interstate 81 and the Turnpike, so it's easy to get to.
Yeah.
But we're inviting the public and school students to come for that, to kind of show from the beginning how to get a forester involved, different ways to cut a tree, like a normal chainsaw, to the like mechanized harvesting, and then I'm hoping to have like a portable sawmill, and then kind of see, how a tree can be cut, and then wood products, the Woodmobile will be there. So that's going to be a big event, September 29th to October 2nd, I believe.
Very cool.
So I'm in the middle of getting like flyers out, for that. But we do host, like I said, so we will have game logging trainings in the fall. We just had a bunch this spring. They are chainsaw safety courses. So if you are at all interested in, if you have property and you run a chainsaw and you kind of want to know a little bit more, they're a really good class to take. The instructor is from out in Western PA, Kevin Snyder, but he's very, very knowledgeable, and everybody loves the class once they're done with it.
That's awesome.
So we do those. We do logger rescue courses, which are kind of geared towards fire or EMT to help if they have to go, rescue a logger, and they're usually in a remote situation. So that is an instructor specifically kind of for that. First aid, CPR, they're all kind of workforce development programs, but we do forestry symposiums, which is more of an education for the public. We had one this spring above the Lackawanna State Park. I'm trying to think of everything else. There's always events going on. Yeah. So I try to keep everything up on our website up to date, and our social media, of course. But yeah, anybody can be a member with us. You don't have to have a ton of land, and you don't have to be a logger if you're interested in, just sustainable forestry and helping the environment. We would love to have you.
That's great. Okay, so NTHA isn't just for forestry professionals that are like selling timber or things like that. No. We have forest landowners, even if you have like 2 acres and you got we students have free membership, if they're interested. That's a way. We do scholarships every spring as well for students, either high school students or college students going into environmental resources or forestry. So anybody could be, you don't have to, you could just have an active membership with us and not be in the forest industry at all. Right. Well, that's good to know. That's a great way for people to get involved and stay up to date and get all of those good resources. Yeah. So is there anything else that you want to share? I
don't think so. I feel like we covered a lot. I mean, there's a lot.
I think so too. Yeah.
Cover, but I think that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge topic, but I feel like we touched on a lot of different species and lots of things going on in the forestry industry.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Conservation Podcast here at Pike County Conservation District. If you enjoyed this episode and want to find more, you can find past episodes and new episodes. Our Season 2 episodes will be released monthly starting January 2024 on our website, pikeconservation.org, under the Education tab, or on Spotify. To stay in touch with us and find out more about our upcoming events, newly released podcast episodes, and tips and tricks for conservation at home, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and sign up for our email monthly newsletter, which you can find the sign up link at the bottom of our website, pikeconservation.org. Thanks for listening.